What's up, YouTube? Welcome to Fred's Full Throttle. Each week I'm going to take you with me on my adventures into the world of cars. So let's get right into today's video. So for today's video, we're going to do a quick deep dive on the top 4 EV pickup trucks, which are going to be coming to market soon, and talking about some of the pros and cons of each, as well as the features where they stand out versus the competition. There are 4 that I'm going to talk about today, but there are a couple other notable exemptions which are going to be coming in the pipeline, but they're probably a little further out than 2022. Everything that I'm going to talk about in this video is going to be coming out within pretty much a calendar year of right now. By mid-2022, all of these are probably going to be on the market. So some of those dates are a little bit flexible and, subject to change. That's based on current information that I have. But in general, they all should be out within the next year. So that's pretty exciting. So the 4 vehicles that we're going to talk about the Rivian R1T pickup truck. We're going to talk about the Hummer EV pickup truck. We're going to talk about the Tesla Cybertruck. And we're going to talk about the Ford F-150 Lightning pickup truck. So the reason I picked these 4 versus there's some additional ones out there is that these are the ones that seem the most promising and the most likely to actually deliver on a large majority of the things that they're saying they can do, release dates, all of that stuff. There are 2 notable exemptions I want to just quickly mention. There's Canoe with its kind of modularized pickup truck / van, which looks really interesting. It's going to be super configurable and tailored towards exactly the type of thing you want it to be. And the other pickup truck is going to be the Lordstown Motors Endurance, which sounds promising, and they've got a factory and they're starting to build, but there's been a bunch of news recently where things are getting a bit delayed. There's some questions about the investing, and so I don't think it's quite ready to go to market, so we're going to hold off on that one. But once that becomes more of a sure thing, I'll probably be doing a video to talk about it and some of the interesting features that that has. So the first thing I want to do is I want to just talk for a moment about a couple headline things about each of them. I'm not going to get into all the specs and stuff just yet, but we're going to just mention kind of the key things that might differentiate that a little more than some of the standard things. They all have a front trunk. They all have kind of that skateboard chassis design. But there's some features about each of these that are a little more unique, and I think it's worth mentioning because some of them only occur on that one vehicle. So let's get right into it. So we're going to start with the Rivian. There are 3 things that really stand out to me about it as kind of unique. The first is the gear tunnel. That's the kind of cut-through section behind the back row passenger seats where you can store different things. You can put a set of skis, some snowboards. You can even get modules that plug in, such as their very famous modular kitchen where you can have water, a stove, storage, all in this kind of slide-out panel that doesn't take up any additional space in the truck, but it's using what was otherwise dead space. So I thought that was pretty cool. The next thing is that they're going to have modularized batteries. This is something that I haven't seen a lot of press about, though I did cover it in my kind of overview of Rivian, which I'll post a link in the video. But that video covers a little bit more of the detail, but Rivian's going to have the ability to add a temporary or permanent additional battery in the bed of your truck. It can be either a stand-up or lay-down feature. So I suggest go and check that out. I haven't seen a lot of other videos talk about it, but I think that's a pretty neat feature because you can take a truck that has, whatever the set range is from the factory, and you can add an appreciable percentage of this. And then the last one is obviously everybody's favorite tank turn. The fact that Rivian has this and thought of this first is pretty cool. There's some amazing footage of it, which I also put in my Rivian video, but the tank turn is a pretty cool feature and something I haven't yet seen on some of the other vehicles, though I'm certain they'll have that ability. It's probably just a matter of they're going to license it and name it something else, but very cool for Rivian. All right, so we're moving on to the Hummer EV and a couple of the cool standout features that has that I haven't seen anywhere else. So the first one is crab walk, which basically it allows you to have front and rear turning of your tires, except you can turn them in the same direction. So front will turn a certain way, back will turn the same way, and then the vehicle can actually kind of slide or crawl sideways a little bit. And this is going to be handy for some of the stuff you might encounter on a trail, as well as if you're trying to parallel park. They're going to have some sensors and stuff built into the car, so you can actually crab walk yourself into a tighter parking space than you might normally be able to get into. The video that they have of it shows a vehicle crab walking back and forth and actually getting out of a parking space that was pretty tight. So that's pretty cool, something I haven't seen elsewhere. The next thing I wanted to mention is the removable roof. So in addition to being a glass panel above you in the Hummer EV, you're actually going to be able to remove that, and it's going to be in component pieces, just like a Jeep Wrangler. So you could pull off just the driver's side if you wanted to. You can pull off both sides. You can do that front and back, so you actually can get kind of that full open top experience, similar to what the Bronco or the Jeep Wrangler has. And then the last feature, which I thought was kind of a standout for the Hummer EV, is that it has something called Super Cruise. Now, I believe that this is similar to Autopilot. There's probably some differences, but it's something that GM offers for some of their vehicles, kind of their upper spec models, Cadillac and that kind of thing. And it's going to be on the Hummer EV, so it's going to give you some of that kind of automated driving where you basically can sit back and you actually don't need your hands on the wheel. Their ads actually advertise, they show the guy driving, he wants to pass, you put it into this Super Cruise. It does seem like it's an automated cruise control rather than showing it, for lack of a better term, autopiloting down on back roads. It probably is using the lines, the street signs, that kind of thing. But it does show someone in cruise control, overtake a vehicle, the vehicle automatically pulls into the other lane, passes, and then returns. And the person driving it, their hands are off. So kind of a neat feature, though obviously Tesla has very similar capabilities and probably even a little bit more comprehensive for their line of vehicles. All right, so the elephant in the room is the Tesla Cybertruck. Everybody's probably seen pictures of it. This is the most futuristic looking vehicle from the future that Elon Musk came back in time to give to everybody. I'm sort of kidding, sort of. But in reality, this vehicle is actually going to be out pretty soon, and it looks unlike anything else we've ever seen. It looks so out of the future and out of a sci-fi movie, and yet this is going to be a thing that you can buy, and it actually starts at a pretty reasonable price. So I wanted to cover a couple of the standout features on the Cybertruck. One which I thought was pretty cool is it has not only the built-in power, but it also has a built-in air compressor, so that if you're out somewhere, you're off-roading, you air down to go on sand dunes or to do some kind of mud and other stuff like that, you can actually use the built-in air compressor to pump the tires back up afterwards. Having that built right in, especially since this is going to be targeting people who buy trucks and some of those people do off-roading, that's a pretty cool feature. And also if you have like the ATV they showed in the back, or you're carrying a motorcycle or anything like that, having the ability to adjust the tire pressures on those vehicles is kind of an added bonus. So that was pretty cool. The next point I wanted to cover about the Cybertruck is also that it has a much bigger battery than a normal EV from Tesla. Right now, kind of their biggest battery, I believe, and don't quote me on this, I'm not an expert in Tesla, but I believe it's around 105 kilowatt hours built into their Model S's, Model 3s, etc. The Cybertruck is going to have a 200 or 210 kilowatt hour battery. And the way that I've read, and I'm not an expert, but what I've read is that it is essentially two of those 100 kilowatt hour batteries stacked, and that's going to give it that range that is kind of a headline figure. It's more than any other brand, which we'll get into in a minute. So they're thinking outside the box a little bit, and I really appreciate that. They know that range anxiety is a thing. They know that people who buy a truck are going to probably do some off-roading or do some adventures or be hauling a lot of stuff. So literally having twice as much battery is going to give you not only better range, but if you are carrying a lot of stuff, you're really stressing those motors, having all that extra power is going to really come in handy, and you're not going to get stranded. So this is definitely an area where the Cybertruck stands out. And, say what you will about how it looks. Some people love it, some people hate it. I think that's a pretty amazing feature that you can have literally double the battery and not worry about range. So that's pretty cool. And then certainly the last thing, and it's worth saying, is that this is a stainless steel vehicle. They're using a similar grade stainless that they have on SpaceX, one of Elon's other projects you may have heard of. They're using a similar grade stainless, so not only is it very, very durable, it's corrosion resistant, it's dent resistant, it's scratch resistant, it's incredibly hard, and they're even saying, like, if you took a 9mm handgun and shot it at the truck, that technically the vehicle will stop bullets. Please don't try that at home. In fact, don't ever try that for any reason whatsoever. But really, the fact that the vehicle is going to be made of this material is going to make it tougher. It's going to hold up a lot better. And one other cool thing is that at least the initial versions of this are going to come out raw steel. They're going to be a brushed steel finish. They're not going to be painted. So these vehicles, when you see them, are going to look like unlike anything else on the road, similar to how a DeLorean looked probably when that first came out and had the raw stainless steel. So I think that's pretty cool. And so the last vehicle I wanted to cover, which there's been a huge recent buzz about, is the Ford F-150 Lightning. This is Ford's first kind of foray into the truck world for EVs. They've obviously got the Mustang Mach-E, but they want to really go after the truck market, and they're using one of the most popular platforms of all time of any vehicle, and I think that's a really smart move on their part. So there are a couple things about the Ford that also stand out. So the first one, which is kind of small but also pretty handy, is that when you're in the vehicle, you've got your kind of gear select, you've got the drive selector, I guess I should say, which is a handle that comes out, but there's a button and that flips down automatically. It's got a little motor. Then you can take the center console and literally flip it 180. It'll open all the way, and you actually have a table surface for this entire thing, probably about the width of a laptop. They show people setting a drink on it, putting a laptop out on it, and that's actually a pretty amazing feature. I think that that's going to be something that differentiates it. There will probably be people that copy it, but what that's going to let you do is for people who are working or their truck is basically their mobile office, whether it's a contractor, construction, forest ranger, somebody out in the woods, it actually gives them a work surface that they can write notes down, they can use a computer or laptop and store things all on a nice smooth flat surface, which I think is pretty cool. So that stood out to me. The next thing is that the F-150 Lightning also has onboard scales at each wheel, which allow it to weigh not only the load, but also the distribution of load across the vehicle. So this is actually a pretty neat feature. This is going to let you see what the tongue weight is of a trailer. It's going to see how much the vehicle weighs when you have people in it versus not, or if you load it up with gear. Now, at least the most obvious way that this is going to come in handy is Ford has software that obviously tells you what the range of the vehicle is. You charge it overnight, you get in and you're like, I'm going to go for a big drive. It's going to give you a range. But, okay, I'm putting a few backpacks in, I'm going to bring my dog, oh yeah, and part of my family is coming with me, and let's put in some camping gear. That's going to really change that equation. Now, people can kind of ballpark that and make estimates, but it's not going to be as accurate as something that's actually measuring what the vehicle is capable of doing against what the weight of the actual vehicle is on all four wheels. So having that is going to give it a lot better accuracy and a lot better range estimation because it'll take into account how you're driving, as well as it'll say, hey, I've got another 800 pounds of people and gear or 1,000 pounds of gear in the bed, and that's going to affect what my range is, and it'll give you a more accurate, up-to-date number. So I think that's actually a pretty cool feature. They're probably going to find other ways to use that as well, whether it's for adjusting the suspension, and maybe they're already doing that. But I think that's a pretty neat thing, and I don't know that any of the others do that right now. And then lastly, and this is certainly a standout feature, and it might hit home for a lot of people, is that it lets you operate the vehicle as a 9600 watt generator. So there's 120 volt outlets, there's 240 volt outlets, and the vehicle itself, Ford advertises that you can get 3 days of full power for an entire house, or you can get up to 10 days if you're rationing. Let's say I want to power a couple lights, I want to run the refrigerator, maybe turn on the water heater or the furnace, that kind of thing. But it actually lets you treat the truck as a generator for your house. So you're plugged in and you lose power, you can actually build a circuit into your house, and maybe Ford even provides probably some sort of interface, but you basically are off the grid at that point, flip a switch, and all of a sudden the Ford is now powering your house. Your lights are on, your fridge is keeping your food cold, and you can turn the heat on or off, maybe even air conditioning. But the vehicle is able to power an entire household for up to 3 days, which is pretty cool. So if you knew, hey, I'm going to be without power for a day, maybe a tree branch took out one of your power lines, that is a pretty neat feature, and it also prevents you from having to buy an actual generator. Most places where people live, you're going to have your power back within a day or so, probably at most, maybe 2 days if it's a really big storm or something. And having the ability to just use your vehicle like that instead of filling up gas in a generator, dragging it outside, dealing with the noise, trying to get it running, all that stuff, this is going to be a much easier solution. And especially if it's already plugged in, it's probably going to be a pretty seamless way to switch over to it. So very cool feature. Also, just having the outlets in general, front and back, you've got 120s in the front, you've got USB, you've got in the back 120s and a 240. So if you're running some larger power equipment, you're just fine. So very cool. This is going to be really handy for people who are using their truck as a mobile office or any other job where they need power kind of remotely. Instead of having a generator, plug it into the truck, which I think is awesome.